Hi, everyone. This is Peyton Stilling back with another episode of The Power of Storytelling. And today we have operatic vocalist and vocal coach, Jared Schwartz. He graduated
Hey,
from Bethel College, and then he earned a graduate degree in voice from Eastman School of Music in New York. He has since gone on to chart on the Billboard traditional classical charts, composed orchestral arrangements for the Dallas and Fort Worth symphonies, and he has been chosen by the National Association of Teachers of Singing as one of the most outstanding young American voice teachers. So that's my little spiel on you.
oh, I'm listening. You're very kind.
Thank you so much for being on today and taking the time to do this. Um, yeah. So to get everything started, I always like to start from the beginning, kind of talking about your childhood, how you grew up,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah. My childhood. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, Indiana, a town of about 4,000 people. When I lived there, there was one stoplight, and now there are three, so they've upgraded a little bit. But I would say it was a good place to do a lot of practicing because there weren't many other options. The nearest like movie theater is about 45 minutes away. So I mean, really, it was like go to church and do your music. I mean, that was kind of my life. Go to school. I kind of I was just drawn to music as a kid,
Mhm.
and my older brother is a couple years older than me. He started piano in kindergarten. Just I think my parents thought it was like a good thing for kids to some music exposure. My
Yeah.
parents love music. They're not professional musicians, but they started him. And being the annoying younger brother that I was, not anymore, but um,
Never.
I decided whatever my older brother did, I needed to also do, and just took to it really quickly for someone who was probably about maybe 3 or 4 years old,
Yeah.
and have never looked back. I just loved piano. I started playing violin in second grade. I had a little panic attack as a second grader because I found out that Mozart played like three instruments by the age of 7 or 9 or something, and I only played one, and I needed more. Like, or I was never going to do anything in life. What is that? I mean,
Second grade.
um,
Wow.
yeah, I know, but there's a lot of perfectionistic pressure that's always been there. It seems like,
Yeah.
um, but I started French horn and band. I was in choir. I was doing things at the time that I thought were normal, but looking back were very strange, like accompanying choirs as a fourth grader. Um, I just really loved music. Um, you know, it wasn't, I wasn't a, I had friends, but I wouldn't say I grew up with a lot of friends. And I think music was such an outlet for me to express. Unbeknownst to me, then it wasn't something I would have been able to identify because I grew up in such a conservative world. But being a queer kid and not even knowing that, just knowing I was different,
Yeah.
um, music and theater were such like happy places
Yeah.
where not only did I fit in, but like I really thrived. And thankfully, I have parents that were really supportive of all my music endeavors. So
Mhm.
when I decided I needed to play violin, they're like, okay, here we go, and they found a teacher, which is incredible when you have a town of like 4,000 people. But
Yeah.
I feel like the universe just kind of guided things, and there just were people in that town at that time that were there and could teach and did want to help train kids in music.
Coming
And
from
that was
oh,
say what?
coming from a small town, did your school have a big theater program or a big music program?
That's what's really special. I think there were like maybe 100 people in my graduating class,
Okay.
but they had a thriving choir and band program and theater program. So I mean, it was a small enough school where you could just kind of do everything.
Uh-huh.
Um, so that was great. And there's like there's a strong tradition of music in the churches there, and churches are like 50% of the culture or more in that kind of area.
Yeah.
Um, so I just had a lot of opportunities to play, to conduct, to sing, to write, even
Yeah.
as a kid. That I think it's very unusual to grow up in like farm country Indiana and have that.
Yeah.
So so that's kind of how I ended up in music, I guess.
Were
I
you
just
composing your own Were you composing your own stuff as a little kid, or did that come later?
that came later. Maybe not actually. Maybe that's as a middle schooler, I would take pieces and rearrange them and rewrite them because I thought this was better.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
And like I would be accompanying the choir, and I would go to the choir director and tell him how I like had this. I think it should go this way, and like I
Uh,
don't know. Now looking back as an almost 40-year old, I'm like, oh, that's not normal, like in a great way. But like I had no idea. I just really loved music and loved playing around with it and making music.
yeah.
And yeah, so I just had a lot of great people that thankfully came alongside and helped inspire me and challenge me and most importantly encourage me, you know,
Yeah.
and help make sure I didn't get stuck there,
Mhm.
which could have happened, you know.
So did you know that you wanted to go to college? Did you know you wanted to go for music? Um,
Um, you know, I guess you can't tell I was a very driven child.
yeah.
Um, I think part of that was the desire for someplace bigger, you know, whether that was a place that had more opportunities for the arts or a place that's more accepting of people that don't fit, you know, a cookie cutter conservative mindset and worldview. Um, I really was driven to go, and college to me seemed like the only path that I knew of.
Yeah.
And, and I had to leave. I had to get out somehow,
Mhm.
and that's the most logical step. And I thankfully got a lot of support so that I could go to my undergrad and not take on any debt.
Yeah.
I got my parents didn't help at all. It was all scholarships and such, but really thankful for that. If I had to go into major debt, I might have thought twice about it, but thankfully that wasn't the
You're
path
like,
I had to go
not,
down.
you know? Yeah.
Exactly, truly, you know. So I did my undergrad. I actually started out at Butler University in Indianapolis and was a chemistry pre-med French horn piano major.
Oh,
It was stupid. It was stupid. Um, I would like take my French horn to chemistry lab, leave chemistry lab early to run across campus to be late for orchestra. I mean, it was inhuman. I got sick like every 2 weeks because I never slept. I mean, it was just stupid. Um, and you know, I had to backtrack a little bit. I had surgery on my right wrist the summer between high school and college.
mhm.
Um, and that made it a little bit iffy on whether or not I could pursue piano. And I ended up, after one semester at Butler, decided I wanted to transfer to Bethel College because I could study with this world-renowned pianist named Alexander Terrazza. I was
Mhm.
like one of two Americans in this studio of like international virtuosos, and that was incredible music making.
Wow.
And I liked that. Plus, I liked, you know, a little bit of a smaller school. I think Bethel was maybe 1,800, maybe 2,000 people. Um, and for my conservative worldview, it fit a little bit better as well for where I was at as a person. Um, so I did that, and my freshman year, I started accompanying voice lessons for a voice teacher who could sing but couldn't play the piano,
Mhm.
and it's like the best job in the world. Like I got paid to sit there and like hang out and make music and like sight read and learn stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm sitting in a voice studio, hearing all this stuff about singing. I'd always been singing. I'd done a lot of musicals, but I never studied voice, and that's how I ended up after that year. Be like, hey, I think I want to like maybe like be a voice major and a piano major because why not? So I had my first voice lessons like maybe halfway through my sophomore year of college.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so that's kind of how I got into singing. That was like the last thing I came to, which is ironic that that's like the thing I do now. But
Yeah.
like, isn't that's the journey, I guess. So
Did you obviously we'll talk more about your performing career, but also did you know what you wanted to do with your degrees? Because
I
I
had
feel
no
like,
idea.
yeah, you're just like,
I thought at first I thought I wanted to perform as like a pianist, and
mm,
then I just hated the life of literally practicing 8 to 10 hours a day. It was just, and that's what it takes. And your whole life, and it's so hard on your body. I'm like 6'1", and it's really hard for me to play the piano for that long, just because my back and my neck go to.
yeah,
Um, so so that was kind of a, and also my wrist still is quite a little bit unstable even post surgery. So I kind of figured that out by doing it. That I'm going to finish this degree, but I don't think I want to pursue that. Singing seems more like a better fit for me as a human,
yeah,
and as a low voice, it's a little bit more rare to be a low voice in the classical world. Um, so I decided to go into singing, thinking, okay, I'll see what happens next. And then I got into a really top ranked music school for my master's, and I thought, well, let's just see what happens. And yeah, that's kind of it. Really was just show up and see what the universe does. It really was.
yeah. Which I feel like no matter how hard we try to control things, it's just the universe is gonna do what it wants to do at the end of the day.
It usually ends up being like a lot more interesting than what we would have thought we would have done. So um, I think you gotta. Yeah, I very much am a recovering control addict, whatever you want to call it.
Uh,
I love to plan things. I love to get things done. I love a good to-do list, which is great. I mean, I think that's part of my success. And you have to be flexible because life happens,
yeah.
and sometimes the things that you were certain you had to have are the best things you never got. You
Mhm.
know, really. Um,
Well
yeah.
said.
Hmm.
Well said. Um,
Hear
so
those, yeah.
what'd you say?
Hear your allergies over there. As
Oh,
your vocal coach,
oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
oh
I know. Gotta love spring. It always
yeah,
always kicks my butt.
thank you, Texas. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
With me too.
So being in the classical world, is that the kind of music you listen to in your free time, or how did you end up there?
Yeah, great question. Um, I grew up as a classically trained pianist, but I was also like doing a lot of musicals. I would also do a lot of improvising, making my own kind of arrangements or whatnot, which is a little bit different than just like a typical classical pianist path.
Yeah.
Um, I think I ended up pursuing opera as a singer just
Mhm.
because I'm a bass, and there isn't a lot of room for low voice uh, cisgender men at least on Broadway right now.
Mhm.
I love Broadway. That's like, oh my god, I would love that, but like it's not really where I fit. At least not for another 10 years or so until I look a little bit older. So I started.
Musical.
Say what?
What's your favorite musical?
Oh goodness. I don't know that I have a favorite, but I could give you like some of my favorites at least. I'll say, you know, don't listen to this, kids, unless your parents say you're allowed to. But Book of Mormon is hilarious,
Oh, yes.
hilarious. Um, no, like judge me, but I love Wicked. I have seen it like 3 times. It's just great.
It's a
I
great.
love. I mean, there's a reason why it's still around. Like, that's great. I love the musical Bandstand. That's one that a lot of people know, but I think you would love it personally because it's about the struggle of being an artist
Mhm.
and a roller coaster that career is.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what it was when I went into it, and I found myself kind of just knocked on my butt. It was great,
Yeah.
really 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 cool. Um, but yeah, so classical music is where I ended up because it seemed to be the most accommodating for what my voice was.
Mhm.
Um, there's kind of a waiting game when as a lower voice male singer. Um, in that you have to let your body catch up with your brain in a way, because there's just the lower the voice, generally the longer it takes to develop, and there's just physiology. So
Interesting.
that's honestly kind of how I ended up voice coaching. Um, I moved to Texas and was a waiter at the Olive Garden in McKinney for like 6 weeks, and I was like, I think I'm gonna try teaching. I had done some in my undergrad and grad school, but didn't really think it was like the thing I was gonna do.
Mhm.
Um, so I started teaching at public schools. They would bring voice coaches in during the day for like, $15 for 30 minutes or something. I don't remember exactly. And you would teach people during their choir periods. Like they'd have like two people per period.
Mhm.
And I was teaching in like Arlington and Carrollton and Richardson. And living in McKinney, it was insane. But driving a lot. And within about 2 months, I had over 60 students. It just kind of blew up. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm good at this.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just kind of gone on from there. Excuse me, I'm at the piano. It's been something that, looking back, makes sense why it worked. But at the time, it was like, well, I don't want to be a waiter, so nothing wrong with being a waiter. But for me, it was like too much small talk. My introvert self was dying, like too many things to keep track of. But I decided to teach because of that, and then it really blew up. Um, I say that it makes sense that I excelled as a teacher because looking back, Monday was like classical piano lessons. Tuesday was violin lessons. Wednesday was French horn lessons. Thursday was like non-classical piano lessons. Like every day of the week, I had a private lesson with an adult,
Yeah.
which I think is really, really special. That I had so much one-on-one time with adults who were invested in me, I think is like such a privilege. And I think even just as I get older, I realize how special and unique that was, and how grateful I am for those adults. I don't know if we can see this in my studio. I actually have pictures of many of my teachers up here. You can kind of see it there.
Oh, I love
Um, because I think it's so important that people know where it comes from. It's kind of in a way like if I'm their voice parent, that's their voice grandparent. So
that.
you
Yeah.
know, it's not because I'm just this innate know everything. It's because I have wonderful people that poured into me,
Yeah.
and I think it's good to honor all of those who have given so much to us. So
I think that's
um,
great.
yeah, I don't know if that answers the question about classical music. I've kind of taken a rabbit trail or seven, but
Yeah,
uh,
no, I think, yeah, I think you totally answered the question. It was all of it is important. Um, and how is it running your own business? Because you essentially do
yeah,
that.
yeah, I run Schwartz Studio. I have a name for my whole, like everything I do. They tell you when you're in grad school for music, at least they did at Eastman, that you have to be the CEO of your own career as a performer, as a self-employed person. And there are definitely some hard skills you need to learn about like bookkeeping and um, taxes and scheduling and things like that, because that's the reality of life, and you
Yeah.
have to, but I think it's all I've ever known. I've never had like I mean, I had 6 weeks as a waiter.
Yeah.
Um, Otherwise, I've always been a self-employed person. I've had some like piano gigs here or there, but again, that was basically like being self-employed and just showing up as like a hired gun, as they say.
Yeah.
Um, I think I really enjoy it. I like that because I do what I love, so much of what I love can be supported and funded by the business, and it all kind of overlaps. Like, continuing education, which is a real business expense, is having lessons with my voice teacher,
Yeah.
like which I would be doing anyhow. But like, and that's true whether you're a voice teacher or a performer, those kinds of things. And that's what's really special about it. Flip side is it's all on me,
Mm.
but I just try and show up and meet people where they are, whether that's in a lesson or that's on stage or that's in a recording or
Yeah.
composing or all the many facets of what I do. So just show up and do good work and um, be myself as best I know.
What advice do you have to give to someone who is self-employed? Like what kinds of skills do you think are the most important to learn that people, you know, might not talk about?
Um, Good question. I think maybe learn a little bit about Microsoft Excel would be a
Mhm.
good idea. I would um,
Keeping track of all of your
keep track of expenses, of income.
mm,
If you really want to break it down, I would get a separate credit card for all your business expenses. This is what I personally do, and everything that's a business expense is just there, so it's all kept separate. I have a separate account for income for business versus personal.
yeah,
Um, just because I don't enjoy doing paperwork, I don't enjoy writing emails, and this makes it as painless as I know and as efficient as I know.
yeah.
Um, but there is just a, a certain amount of time one has to just put into maintaining it.
Mm,
So it doesn't become this monstrous, overwhelming thing when you have to do your taxes every year,
yeah,
which I've learned the hard way. I've learned that as I've done it. So every 3 months or so.
yeah. Good to know. Good to know. Because I think a lot of people don't, especially nowadays with social media, everyone talks about, oh, it's so great to be self-employed, you know, be your own boss, but they don't talk about the flip side of it. And
Like shopping for your own health insurance, things like that.
mm,
Funding your own retirement accounts,
mm,
things things that are very necessary for life in the United States.
mm,
And you don't really think about that when you're 20 and graduated from college. You're just like, someone wants to pay me money to do something I like. That's cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's so much. Yeah.
So a couple last questions for you. What is a day in your life? I mean, I guess
Ooh.
it is a little bit different, but if someone is like, oh man, I want to be a vocal coach, I want to do what he does. What does your day look like?
Um, it depends on the day, but I'll give you a day in the life of a teaching day because I'm moving more into composing and taking days and blocking out for that. So a teaching day would look like wake up in the morning, um, probably start drinking pre-workout, which sounds super bro-tastic, which I am not, but because I'm going to go to the gym eventually. So I usually get up, I make this pre-workout drink, and then I sit in my chair and I do my morning pages. Morning pages are something I learned from a fantastic book I highly recommend to anyone, whether or not you're going into the arts or not, called a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. I've read it 4 or 5 times at this point. The first time I read it, I wrote an entire album. It's that powerful. And
Oh,
there are skill sets, practical skill sets you learn in there that help you get past, I call it the choir of criticism in your own head that shuts you down. And that's good for you, absolutely, as a creative,
mhm.
but also just as a human.
Yeah.
Um, and so every morning I sit in this chair. I have a little corner that like looks out the window, and have this like notebook. It's nothing special. It's not even like leather bound. It's just like 99 cents from Amazon or something.
Yeah.
And I write 3 pages, and it's like a word dump of whatever is in my head. Sometimes it's like really boring stuff, and then other times like I'll hear things that maybe inspire a song, or maybe it's something that like I need to look at inside myself that like my guts are telling me something needs to be addressed. And I think anyone that works with people needs to really have a lot of self-awareness because you could very easily project all of your own junk onto other people,
Mhm.
and that's how you hurt people.
Yeah.
Um, and one of my mantras, prayers, whatever word you want to say, as a teacher is like, don't let my insecurities ever hinder or harm someone I'm helping.
Mhm.
So the morning pages is huge. I highly recommend that. Then I usually head to the gym, and I do some kind of lifting, and then I swim. I love swimming. I would swim every day if my shoulders would allow me to.
Okay.
Then I'm usually back home, eat some breakfast, and then probably start writing.
Okay.
Um, Whether that's doing research for writing or writing. And then I usually start teaching around 1 o'clock, and I get done around 6:30 or 7. And some days it's earlier, some days it's later. And I just have people in here back to back to back to back to back, and it's wild and it's fun, and you see all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Um, you get people who are professionals. You get people who are figuring out what they do with their life, like someone I know. People who then become professionals. You have people. I've started working with some members of the trans community, which has been so amazing to see, to help people find their real voice, and especially if they're in the process of transitioning, or um, it can be really challenged for a trans woman to find her real higher speaking voice. And um, when they start making sounds that inside themselves, I mean, like, kind of makes me emotional, honestly, to see like how they just explode with light.
Yeah.
Their whole self lights up. Like, I never ever thought that that would be a thing I did, but here I am getting to help people like that, and
Yeah.
that is incredible, 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 incredible. So I love that. Yeah, I mean, I have to give a shout out to my voice teacher, David Jones. Voiceteacher.com has lots of articles. That's where I would credit, where I learned a lot of the technical skills of a voice coach. And I also probably need to credit my first voice teacher, Vicki Garrett, who was like, I think you should think about teaching people how to sing. And I was like, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So sometimes listen to people that know you well and can see you. Maybe they know you better than yourself sometimes. But yeah, that's kind of a normal day. And then maybe after I'm done teaching, I'll go to dinner or collapse on the couch and binge watch something on Netflix or something. So yeah, that's my life.
Man, that's cool. Well, thank you so much. And I guess my last question is, what is your greatest piece of advice to give to high schoolers, people fresh out of college?
Whew. The greatest piece of advice. People fresh out of college or high schoolers. My goodness. Listen to your guts. Listen to your intuition. We are told to like value so many things as more important, whether it's like money or certainty or religious dogma. That if you know it doesn't feel right in your guts, if it feels heavy, let it go, or get away from it if you can, when you can.
Mhm.
But listen to yourself. And I think that will get you where you need to be. And, always get help if you need it. You're not alone. The world's a more beautiful place because you're in it and you're your unique self. And just like I never imagined my life being where it is today and getting to do all the amazing things I get to do, it's a great journey, and stick around for it, and just be your wonderful, beautiful self. And anybody that tries to mute that or damp that down, I mean, maybe needs to not be so close to you anymore.
Yeah,
Probably it.
I love that. I think that's so important. I think it's a hard, you hear that all the time, and it's such a hard thing to do.
I'm a big reader, so I'll just say this. There's a great book I just finished, and I'm reading it the second time now because I immediately finished it and started it again, called The Way of Integrity by Martha Beck. And I've never found a book with so many tools to help you learn to listen to yourself. I wish I had had that book at 18.
Yeah, I'm gonna go buy that book.
I mean,
Yeah.
highly recommend that, and The Artist's Way. I mean, if they're ironically, Martha Beck read The Artist's Way, and that's how she wrote her books. So
Oh, cool.
they're both pretty profound books. The
Yeah.
Artist's Way by Julie Cameron, and The Way of Integrity by Martha Beck. I mean, talk about powerful, powerful, talented women that are writing these incredible books that are so life-giving to people. So
Yeah, I'm gonna have to put that on my reading list.
girl, check it out.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm a huge
just
reader. Yeah.
ready for it. It's gonna knock you on your butt, but it's gonna be worth it.
Thank you so much for being on today.
Fun. Thank
You
you, Peyton.
you got to give us so much wisdom, so I appreciate it.